Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me is Mike, as always. Mike, we are going to talk about one of the hot button issues that's in comic books. We did a series where we talked about how to fix modern comics a few months back, or a couple weeks back.
Right.
We thought about broaching this topic in there, but we kind of have talked about this a lot, and we can't determine whether or not really we think this is an issue or a benefit of comics, or whether it's a good thing or bad thing for fans, and that is variant covers of comic books. I will be honest on this. I am typically 50-50 on variants, and that I would love to say that I hate variant covers. But to be honest, I have bought more than a few comics simply because of the cool
I
variant covers that
know.
have existed. So
I
I would be a
know.
hypocrite to act like it has no positive. So we'll kind of just talk about a couple of the different types of variants and things that we see, what we think's good about it, what we think's bad about it. And then maybe we'll kind of go if we had to keep it or get rid of it. So Mike, for you, before I get into anything with me, what are your feelings on variant covers overall?
I have to admit, I kind of like having options. And I think the comic companies know that Mike likes options. So we're going to give him case in point. Okay. When the Zack Snyder Justice League came out, right? I ran down to
Yep.
my comic store, made sure I got a copy, but oh, wait, I found out. I don't know if it's in the back. I found out that there was a Zack Snyder Justice League with Flash on the cover.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. I had to go get that one because I'm a Flash fan. So
Yep.
I love that they put out a comic with my favorite character on the cover. And yes, DC, you will get some money, $5.99 in this instance.
Instance.
Yeah, I got 12. I spent $12 on a
Just getting this the Snyder. Yeah,
yes,
I
I
do
had to
think.
have it.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I do think there's some variant covers that are pretty cool. I will say, I don't know that I've ever truly bought a book I had no interest in buying just because of a variant cover. I will say sometimes variant covers have gotten me to buy books that I probably wouldn't have started, like a first issue. But it's funny in that I'll say I'm a hypocrite in that like I can bring two examples of stuff I love with variants and then two I hate. So like I was always going to buy Batman Superman World's Finest. I love that they had this variant cover that if you can kind of see it there, it had Jerry Seinfeld on it. Seinfeld's a huge Superman fan.
Oh,
Seinfeld is my favorite TV show of all time. I love that this was the number one issue. I was
and the
going, I got,
classic
yeah,
Batmobile.
classic Batmobile. I absolutely love Seinfeld. So for me, and that was really cool. And again, I was always going to buy that book. So for me, it was a cool added benefit of I was already going to buy this book. Cool.
Yeah.
Another one, I love the Superior Spider-Man story. They did that a couple this last couple years. They've been doing a reboot kind of it of revisiting that era. I was always going to buy it. They did this really cool Wolverine homage cover, and so it's
Oh,
Amazing Spider-Man 50, that classic Romita cover, just with Wolverine in it because it was Wolverine's anniversary. And so cool benefit. I was always going to buy this book. I get Wolverine, my favorite Marvel character, on a book. I'll take that all day long. I think that's cool. So I think those are examples of ones that are really good. I think the ones that really stink. I think there's two different ones, and I think one's a little more insidious than the other. I can't stand when you show up late to the shop and maybe a book you've been picking up is low on numbers. So like I've been reading Moon Knight for a very long time. I love Moon Knight. He's kind of the Batman-esque character in Marvel, and so naturally anybody that hits that vibe is someone I pick up. Got to the store a little bit late. All the Moon Knight number eights left were this weird Gwen Stacy Cyclops hybrid. I,
what's
I
going on
don't
there?
know. I don't know what's going. Again, it's not that it's bad art, but it's a Moon Knight comic. What the heck is Gwen Stacy dressed up as Cyclops doing uh, on a
wait,
Moon Knight comic?
wait a minute.
Like
What?
I,
My
I hate
brain
I
just
hate
got
and
blown.
like I wasn't gonna go spend another $4 for it. So I hate when I pull up my full run of Jed McKay Moon Knights and I have just this random weird
You
cover.
got to fix that problem.
Yeah,
There's eBay.
yeah, that's maybe why eBay. But again, it's one of those things that drives me crazy. The
Yeah.
one that I think is the most, I think, insidious or wrong, or that I think hurts fans. My son does not buy a lot of American comic books. He is more of a manga guy. But two things my kid really loves. He still loves Iron Man. Iron Man has always kind of been his favorite superhero character. And then he absolutely loves the movie Alien. with the Xenomorph and all that. So he walked into the shop with me one week, and they had Iron Man versus Alien on the cover. He was so excited to pick this up. At the store that we buy at, sometimes they kind of have them where they're in a sleeve already. And so he largely didn't look at it. He saw the cover, saw it was in a sleeve. He wasn't going to pull it out in the store and look at it because the store kind of has when they're in the sleeves or in the sleeves. He opens it up, and I'll let you guess how many pages the alien xenomorph shows up on this book. It's zero. Doesn't show it all.
Wow.
This is simply a variant cover that was just there to get people like my kid to buy the cover. And for him, largely turns into a
Dastardly.
massively negative experience because for him, he thought,
Dastardly.
man, I'm getting to see finally this, my favorite superhero versus one of my favorite villains. And it's not there. And again, I know there's
Oh,
people who probably would pick this up and love it, and it's a cool collector's item. But again, it's one of those things I think variant covers can do a lot of harm. For someone like my son who does not buy a lot of American comic books, sees that, gets all excited. I can only imagine if you were someone who doesn't go to the comic book shop often, you see this, you think you're getting Tony Stark versus the Xenomorph, and
I
it's
got
nothing to do
gypped.
with that.
I got
Yeah.
gypped. I will tell you for me, I went and trimmed down my sub list. So
Mhm.
my favorite character is Flash. So I used to get both covers, A and B, every month. I have now trimmed down to just the B cover. So I am getting the variant cover every month.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they do a great job. This is another example of a great job. Sometimes they don't. Um, not that this just isn't my thing. I
It's
know
just
it's
not your style. Yeah.
yeah, but I like the B cover, so I do get cover B every month. No more cover A for me. I love my Blade Runner, right?
Hmm.
Titan. Um, and I love like I pick up this book to read it. So no matter what's on the cover, I'm getting it. But there's just a lot of cool cover choices. And sometimes I'll say, can I trade out for this one that I see on the wall? And
Yeah.
Rose Red Dragon's Lair always says, yeah, sure. They just have like, some other options, like these tech ones that
Yeah.
they've been doing forever. They're really cool. I usually don't get them, but they're really cool. I like the more artsy ones like this. This is just really cool, really catches the vibe of the movie. Um, I did trade for this one for
The Virgin art
Sword.
cover on Solar's, yeah.
Yeah, that one was really, really cool. Um, I did trade for this Jay Garrick cover when I was getting Jay Garrick because I
Yeah.
like that one the way that came out. Titan again, Black Lotus, Black
Yeah, I
Lotus.
think there are a ton of really cool variant options. I think the problem I would say overall where I would probably be a little more negative with variants. I do think there's a couple impacts of it. And again, I feel like a hypocrite because I absolutely run in. Like I bought Space Ghost today. There was a bunch of cool covers. I love Jay Lee. I like his art. I've just always liked the art. I flipped through and went through the stack and found the copy of that. But I will say, I mean, you've got what for an issue of Space Ghost, you've got two
Whoa,
pages
a
full
very
of variant covers. Not to mention the new Thundercats series came out today, and you've got almost like
35.
50 different options for it.
That's
I
a
think the
little
big
bit
thing
much.
that kind of happens is, and some of them are retailer exclusive and stuff like that. I think the weird problem for it, I think you have two potential major issues. I do think for comic book stores, I think oftentimes, and I've heard sometimes talking to comic, and I'd be interested if we have anybody who owns a comic book shop. It'd be really interesting to get your opinion and kind of see. Um, I've had some folks say, like, man, sometimes I have to order so many copies of a book that I know is not going to sell, but it's to get one or two of these variants because people at the store want the variant. And so largely they have to order a larger amount than they normally would. Or the publishers do kind of, hey, and it's an incentive variant. So if you order 100 copies, we'll send you one copy that's like this.
And
And I
then the
do think,
speculators, they fight over those.
yep,
And comic shops have to say, no, no, wait a minute. If you're subbed, you might get the 1 in 25 it
or
causes
you
some
pay an
strife.
increased price, or and things like largely I think comic book shops, I've had before where they have variant covers and they got to charge more than the cover price, right? Like sometimes you'll see these foil ones, and the foil cover technically lists the price as 4.99, but the shop's going to charge you 9.99. And I'm never going to blame a comic book shop unless I think it's just exorbitant, like they're ripping you off. For I know they got to recoup their prices on a lot of that, and that
Because
Marvel
they
or
had to buy
DC
100 copies of that
made
book.
them buy 100 copies, and they pretty much know, hey, maybe 25 to 30 of those might sell. The other 60 are going to be, peg warmers over there, shelf warmers over there on the wall.
They'll be
I
in the
think,
discount bin
yeah, and I think
in
that's an
3 months.
issue. I hate that portion of it for comic book stores, and that I
Yeah,
think it does seem to be kind of a punishment for comics in terms of, hey, do you want this? And what I'll say, variant covers typically now, it used to be the cool cover was the A cover.
right.
Now it's like, hey, the really cool Jim Lee art cover, that's the variant cover F that you need to,
Yeah.
spend 100 copies on. And so I think from that angle, that's a bad thing. I think the other thing is you do have a lot where it can kind of be, yes, it's a variant cover, but like that Alien versus Iron Man one, I think they've gotten my kid a couple times on that. With they had a cover of like Doctor Strange and it had Deadpool on it, and so I was like, no, Deadpool's not in the comic. Like it's just there because it's a Deadpool variant month. And I think you do have people where I think customers, that's a really negative customer experience. And I think that's one thing comic books may need to. I don't know if you go down to just one cover, but I do think having covers that have absolutely nothing to do with what's in the book, I think for the comic shop guys like you and me, that works. For new readers, I can only imagine if I walked into a comic book shop and I hadn't bought books in years, and they had like, James Bond, one of my all-time favorite characters, on a cover of Iron Man. I'm like, oh my gosh, Bond is in it, and you read the book and he has nothing to do with it. I
Yeah.
think that's the potential thing that you risk is
Can I
that.
show you? Can I show you two more?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay. So you mentioned you got to the comic shop late.
Hmm.
This is one that I picked up. It's Death Dealer number 3, and they didn't have a Frazetta cover.
So you get the action figure.
Get the action figure variant. But again, it's like I'm into this story. I got to read it, right? Um, can I just say something about? That's when I had to put a disclaimer on my sub box, like I only want the Frazetta covers,
Yeah.
because if you're putting out a comic that's titled Frank Frazetta's and you have the actual permission from the artist to put his artwork on the cover, why would you put anything else? Case in point, I had 3 copies of Dawn Attack. This is when I was in between comic shops.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, but that's not Frank Frazetta, right? I got 3 copies of this number 1 because I was trying to get it. But again, like if you could get the Frank Frazetta, like why would you put anything else on the cover? I like it's an homage, but oh my gosh, the master himself did this one.
Yeah, especially if you're advertising the book as Frank Frazetta's
Dawn Attack, right?
stories.
It's
I,
kind
I
of
just, it's one of the things, and I'd be really interested to see what people think in the comments below. And that I'd have to say, if you told me, hey, Reed, yes or no, would you get rid of variants? I probably would say yes. And that as much as there's times I like variant covers, I do think the potential, I think one for comic book shops from the few owners and stuff that I have talked to, a lot of times it seems like they pay through the teeth to get a variant for a couple people. And then I do think for again, if you're trying to grow comic books, if you're trying to get customers back in the shops, having a book like this, and I mean, I'll be honest, who knows who looks in detail at things, but if you're buying Moon Knight and you go in and someone has told you about Moon Knight, and then you walk in and it's the Gwen Stacy as Cyclops variant cover that month showing, like you're like, what the heck is that? That's not Moon
or
Knight.
the action figure Death Dealer cover.
Yeah, and I think again, nothing again. Like I think this is good art. I don't have a problem with this artist. That's a decent drawing. It's just it's nothing to do with Moon Knight, and I think that's a big issue that you potentially have. Again, it's one of these things with comic books. I think, and some of this it may be that they're surviving based on, hey, we sell so many for variant covers. That may be something where the big two are like, no, we need this. If we get rid of the variant covers, we're in major trouble. But I do just think again, if your industry is going really, really, really well, then you can afford stuff like this. If your industry is not, for new readers, how many readers just get turned off because oh, I went to go buy this. Oh, Wolverine's in this comic book. Awesome. And then no, it's not. And I know it says Superior Spider-Man, but again, you're going to think, hey, the cover's got Wolverine. It's probably going to have Wolverine in it. And you
I
pick it up and you read it and it's not there.
I like the variant covers. I like the choice, but I do think they go overboard sometimes. I like to have the choice. Like, I don't understand why Frank Frazetta's Dawn Attack and Death Dealer don't always have Frank Frazetta on the
Is
cover,
that art?
but anyway, that's cool. I did enjoy a lot of the Conan
Yeah.
variants, and and when I had a choice to pick up a Virgin cover like that, I was like, sure, I'll get that. So I think it's a good thing, but I do think it goes overboard sometimes. And I'm just paging through, of course, Conan because, oh my
No, and
gosh,
I think that's
such
it's
a
an
good
interesting thing,
comic.
and I do agree with you on the point of Conan. You and I, and this is again where I kind of feel like a hypocrite. You and I have talked about Conan.
Yeah,
Conan has had some amazing variant covers where I've been very happy that there's been options. In fact, Conan's had where they've had Della Torre with a cover and then like an homage cover, and I'll be sitting there like, man, do I buy them both or do I one? And so I think if you get a publisher who really puts a lot of effort into it, what I will say is with Conan, where I will always give Conan credit, is all of the comic covers that are there have Conan, right?
yeah,
Like it's a Conan
yeah,
book and Conan's on the
right,
cover,
right.
right?
So
It's not a Conan book and on the cover is Predator fighting Godzilla, and
right,
you open it up and neither one are there. And
it's
so I
Mickey
think that's an
Mouse.
issue.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think they do go a little bit too far. I'd be interested to see what the fans that think about it and what the watchers think about the variant covers. I do kind of like them, but I do know that it goes overboard sometimes. But Titan put out some really good variants for Conan and for my beloved Blade Runner.
Yeah.
These are really good, and and it was kind of cool that when I went to the shop and they started, where do they start? There's a new, yeah, the Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus. I got to come around to the computer terminal there, and they let me pick out I was adding it to my sub list, what cover I wanted. That was really groovy. But yeah, they can go overboard on it.
Yeah, I think maybe one or two options at most. I think maybe if you keep it line, I think once you've got 50 variants coming and stuff like that, it's just really hard to maintain. And I do think if I had to say yes or no, if they said, hey, do you think it should just go to one cover? As much as there's been ones I like, I do think it would be better if it went back to one cover because I do think for new readers, it's an easy recognizable thing if you walk in and that's what the cover looks like, as opposed to, well, there's this cover and then this cover and then here's the foil cover that costs $10, and I just think it overly complicates a few things. As always, though, folks, please let us know what you guys think below. Be really interested to see your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think variant covers are a good thing for comics? Do you think they're a bad thing? What does it personally do for you as a reader? Do you buy variant covers yourself, or does sometimes that turn you off from a book where it makes you not want to buy it? As always, we're very interested in seeing what you guys have to say below. We thank everybody who watches, and folks, we'll catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.